Pioneer farmers in eastern Washington in the late 1800s faced significant challenges due to the region's arid climate and intense summer heat. Their survival and productivity depending on adaptation, resourcefulness, and community cooperation. Many of the earliest settlers built their homes from available materials such as logs or sod. Sod homes, common on the prairie, were cool in the summer and insulated during the winter. Over time, settlers used milled lumber to construct more permanent homes. Houses often had small windows and thick walls to keep the interiors cool. Homes were positioned to take advantage of natural shade from trees or built near water sources. Families used simple cooling methods such as hanging wet sheets over windows or even sleeping outdoors during especially hot nights. Access to water was critical. Many families settled near rivers, creeks, or springs. Wells were dug manually, often requiring significant labor, and windmills were commonly used to pump water from deeper sources. Barrels and cisterns collected rainwater for household use. However, the region's limited rainfall made this method supplementary at best. Early farmers developed basic irrigation systems diverting water from nearby rivers and streams. Ditches and furrows directed water to crops. Later, larger irrigation projects, like those developed under federal programs in the 1900s, became critical to the region's agriculture. A pioneer farmer's day would begin before sunrise to take advantage of the cooler temperatures. Farmers tended to their livestock, milked cows, and checked water sources in the early morning. Most field work, including plowing, planting, and harvesting, was done in the morning or late afternoon to avoid the peak heat. Crops such as wheat, barley, and oats were commonly grown, as they could tolerate dry conditions. Families often rested or worked indoors during the hottest part of the day. Women worked on household tasks such as cooking, sewing, and preserving food. As temperatures cooled later on in the day, farmers would return to the fields to finish the day's work. Children helped with the feeding of animals, the gathering of eggs, and various other farm chores. Meals were simple and hearty. Staples included bread, preserved fruits, salted meats, and vegetables from the garden. Dairy products from cows or goats provided additional nutrition, and hunting or fishing supplemented their diets. Neighbors would often help one another with large tasks like harvesting or building structures. Community barn raisings and shared irrigation projects were common. Many settlers traded goods and services to acquire what they couldn't produce themselves. Farmers constructed simple shade structures in the fields using tarps or branches to provide relief during breaks. Carrying water to the fields was essential. Many used wooden buckets or leather canteens. Over time, settlers learned to accept the dry heat as part of life and worked with the rhythms of nature, adjusting their schedules and practices accordingly. Heat exhaustion and dehydration were constant threats. Lack of proper medical care made illnesses and injuries even more dangerous. Without modern irrigation, crop failures due to drought were common, forcing some families to abandon their farms. Remote homesteads meant limited access to supplies, so families out in the middle of nowhere in eastern Washington had to be highly self-sufficient. Farmers would wear long sleeve shirts and trousers made from light, breathable materials like cotton or linen. These clothes shielded their skin from direct sunlight while allowing airflow. Straw hats were essential for keeping the head and face shaded. Some hats were soaked in water before being worn to provide additional cooling. Farmers often tied wet bandanas or clothes around their necks or heads. As the water evaporated, it would provide a cooling effect. The pioneer farmers maintained a mental focus on completing tasks in a timely fashion to reduce unnecessary time in the sun. They kept their minds on the long-term rewards of their labor, such as a successful harvest, which helped them push through the discomfort of the smoldering heat in eastern Washington during a hot summer season.